민족학교가 조직되고 그때 일어났던 잔혹 행위에 대한 그분의 말씀에서 교훈을 이어가기 위해 민족학교가 설립되었습니다.
Live right. In April 29, 1992, our community raged against the police brutality against the black community simmering. This anger unfortunately burned our community around and directly affecting the stores, like the liquor stores. Those stories are now being shared by the next generation, like through the film Liquor Store Dreams by So.
다른 삶. 1992년 4월 29일, 우리 사회는 흑인 커뮤니티에 대한 경찰의 잔혹성에 대해 분노했습니다. 이 분노는 불행하게도 우리 커뮤니티를 불태웠고 우리 커뮤니티 멤버들이 운영하는 가게들에 직접적인 영향을 미쳤습니다. 그들의 이야기들이 이제 소유은 감독의 영화 리커스토어를 Dreams를 통해 다음 세대와 공유되고 있습니다.
Live in strength. From these stories, we hope to share and help create new ones by providing a scholarship to our recipients, who will in turn share their stories of strength and triumph.
굳세게 살자. 우리는 이러한 이야기들을 통해 장학금을 제공함으로써 우리의 수혜자들이 새로운 이야기를 만드는 데 도움을 주고 그들의 힘과 승리의 이야기들을 공유했으면 합니다.
Live in harmony. It is through these truth seekers that allow us to examine ourselves and hope to walk a better path, with our hearts guiding us to what is true and harmonious. Let us continue to serve our community and aid the vulnerable needs of the seniors who come here, sacrificing their efforts for the success of the next generation, and help us grow the generations through education. Like Tosan Anchangwo Sansanim, the Korean independence leader, said, even with a good plan, a good architect, to build a good house, you need to have good lumber. I hope you help us continue to help grow good lumber.
더불어 살자. 이러한 진리를 추구하는 사람들을 통해 저희는 스스로를 살피고 무엇이 진실이고 조화로운지 분별하여 더 나은 길로 가기를 원합니다. 우리 지역 사회를 위해 계속 봉사하고 다음 세대의 성공을 위해서 희생해 주신 어르신들을 도우며 교육을 통해 차세대의 성장을 돕고자 합니다. 도산 안창호 선생님은 좋은 계획, 좋은 건축가가 있어도 튼튼한 집을 지으려면 좋은 목재가 있어야 한다고 하셨습니다. 앞으로도 좋은 목재를 재배할 수 있도록 도와주시기 바랍니다.
And now for a moment of silence. This is to commemorate the victims of May 18th and April 29th, everyone who fought for democracy and racial injustice, and people who are still killed, suffering for the fighting around the injustice in the world, like in Buffalo, Ukraine, and so forth.
5.18 영향력과 사회 희생자들, 민주주의를 위해서 또 운동차별에 대한 위해서 싸우시는 분들, 또 아직도 전쟁과 그리고 고통받고 죽고 맞서 싸우시는 분들을 위로를 드렸습니다.
Thank you. Now, we're going to do our next item on the event, introduction to May 18th and the KRC. Prepared by Yono.
Hello, it is year 1982. As for me, I went to high school in Gwangju, and now I'm a college student in Seoul. I'm writing to report what happened in May 1980. I know that it's too much for me to report the truth under the brutal Gwangju dictatorship though. I'm determined to do so in the hope that the whole truth will be heard someday. In 1979, when I entered a local high school, President Park Chung-hee died. He grabbed the power in 1961, way before I was born, enjoying the power for as long as 18 years. People having suffered his military dictatorship desperately wanted democracy. Defying people's aspiration, a new military force led by Chun Doo-hwan seized power in a military coup on December 12th. He imposed martial law to take the saddle and arrested or placed democracy activists in preventive custody. As enraged, people took to the street across the nation in May 1980. On May 15th, a 70,000-strong crowd flocked in front of the Seoul railway station, being afraid of the possibility of violent clash with the police. If the rally continued into late night, the student representatives decided to head back to their respective colleges. Fearful of eruption of new protests, the new military force raided a meeting of the Korea College Student Council on May 17th, arresting 95 student representatives and expanded martial law nationwide. The National Assembly, universities, newspaper companies, and broadcasting companies were all controlled by the martial law army in an attempt to close off all the possible avenues to democratization movement. There were also street demonstrations in May in Gwangju, my town. On May 18th, an incident occurred eventually. The martial law army standing in front of the Cheongam National University stopped students from entering. As the students protested, the soldiers relentlessly beat them with batons and even arrested them. The news broke out and the Gwangju citizens arrived at the local government office building. I was there too, with my friends. The soldiers threatened and violently pushed the people to go back home. On May 19th, more of the martial law soldiers came down to Gwangju. The city saw the soldiers and citizens standing off restlessly face to face here and there. The next moment, the martial law army threatened with armored vehicles and helicopters, finally beginning to fire at the crowd. A scene that was hard to believe. How could soldiers fire at innocent citizens? Gwangju had gotten devastated. On May 20th, middle and high schools across Gwangju were ordered to close. My friends and I, who had nowhere to go with school closure, went to Commemoration, the ground zero. I witnessed with my bare eyes that the soldiers beat the citizens flat. I clearly saw people with their heads beaten and dragged by soldiers. People stabbed and shot to the ground with splashing blood, and people got naked and humiliated in punishment. The army got violence day by day, which was never reported in media. As if nothing had happened, TV shows continued. Some people visited the broadcasting companies and vented out their frustrations. Gwangju MBC was even set on fire. On May 21st, all the landlines from Gwangju were cut off. I couldn't reach my mother living outside Gwangju. As the soldiers never put down their guns, the citizens started to arm themselves. They got hold of armored vehicles from car making factories and took weapons from local police stations and ammunition storages. On the same day, the standoff between the citizen army and the martial law army ended with the martial law army's withdrawal from the provincial government building. The citizen army, who succeeded in defending the building, put together a civil autonomy system from May 21st to 26th. It was the citizens that cleaned up the scenes and distributed meals to the citizen army. At the news of lack of blood for transfusion, my friends and I ran to the hospitals. In the plaza in front of local government building were daily civil rallies, where anyone was allowed to speak out, and people put their heads together to find solutions and share the situation. On May 26th, the martial law army drove tanks back to the building, where people flogged and bodily resisted the tanks, successfully saving their hold at least for the day. In the evening, I fell asleep earlier than usual, mainly because of exhaustion due to early morning talks with other people. And around daybreak, I was awakened at a loud voice coming from outside. The martial law army is coming. My fellow citizens, please don't forget us. Someone was broadcasting. I still vividly remember the voice, the outcry asking not to forget, which would not be removed from my mind forever. In the dark, a lot of soldiers arrived at the building. Everyone at the government building knew that it was almost impossible to hold up there. Still many more citizen soldiers remained in the building. Soon, the building was under fire and a countless number of Gwangju citizens lost their beloved ones. Depressingly, the truth of the day is little known to others. Seoul of 1982 is still quiet. College campuses are present with officers in plain clothes. Chung Dong-hwan, the mastermind of the Gwangju tragedy, is still in office. There are no one who believes my Gwangju story in Seoul. Instead, they ask me back that the Gwangju incident occurred by North Korean army or was a rebellious instigation by commies. Then my anger upwells and becomes hardly controllable. Would a day come when people really listen to my Gwangju story? Would bullshits like May 18th being a riot or an act of red elements go away? Would Chung Dong-hwan's dictatorship be brought to an end and democracy arrive? Will the story of May 18th ever go down in textbooks and truthful history education be taught? I long for such a day to come. Until then, I will do what I can and should. Please tell the truth of Gwangju. Please don't forget the spirit of May 18th. With aspiration of democratization. From Seoul, May 1982. Hello.
And now I'll be reading the chronology of the May 18th Gwangju People's Uprising events that's related to us in LA. So in 1980, blood donations campaign for Gwangju citizens and protests at the American Red Cross exposed the massacre during the Gwangju Uprising, further spurred a Koreatown protest for Korea's democracy. The Hongnam Friendship Association of Southern California is formed as a result. And in 1981, May 18th fugitive Yoon Han-bom escapes to the US. And in 1982, fasting protest is held in response to Park Kwang-hyun's death in prison. The Committee to Support Victims of the Gwangju Uprising is formed. Oh Gwangju is published to expose the massacre during the Gwangju Uprising. In 1983, inspired in part by the May 18th movement, the Korean Resource Center is founded. And then from 1984 to present, we hold this commemorative event every year to inherit the May 18th Gwangju Uprising. The May 18th spirit is embodied in our activities. All right, and for our next item are the Korean Resource Center Scholarship Awards, which will be presented by Zhu. Zhu, yeah.
Hi, my name is Zhu. I'm the board chair of KRC, and I'm also the chair of the committee for the KRC Scholarship. So let me briefly introduce the scholarship. So KRC Scholarship started in the 90s, 정만수 이주영 Scholarship. late Ijeong, widely known as can collector grandma, collected cans and bottles and sold them to fund KRC's first scholarship. That was later developed into a dream scholarship for undocumented students. And in 2013, after our founding board chair, Dr. Jung Choi, passed away, his widow, late Kyungja Choi, revived the tradition to start this scholarship award. This year, 39 students applied for the scholarship. The reviewing members of the scholarship committee consistently expressed that virtually all of the submissions were impressive and deserving. So out of these excellent candidates, we selected 5 students to provide 2,000 scholarships each. So let's present our awardees. The first award is Jeongbong Hongik Award, named after Jeongbong Jimmy Choi. And it goes to Rachel Young.
Come on up.
Come on up. Like we want to take a photo first. And can yeah.
이걸 어떻게 이거 좀 오케이. 남는 거 사진분 축하합니다. 네.
Congratulations.
Can you keep?
Yeah.
Good evening to the KRC committee members, scholarship recipients, and family. My name is Rachel Yang, and I'd like to first thank the Korean Resource Center Scholarship Committee for listening to and acknowledging the vision of each scholarship recipient and providing the monetary support to help us achieve it. This scholarship does not only recognize the efforts of every dedicated recipient, but also serves as an investment for our future, as leaders who undoubtedly have a positive impact on our society. As for myself, my goal is to study law to fight injustice and reform our public institutions for low-income and immigrant communities. Through volunteering, I firsthand saw how marginalized communities, including low-income, people of color, and immigrant families, are often disadvantaged in American society. While volunteering is still undoubtedly an important part of me, it has limitations, for I saw how I was only able to assist a small portion of people in my community. That's when I recognized the power of law and policy in changing lives of millions beyond my own proximity. And since high school, I've been continually working towards empowering those whose voices are silenced in society. From involving myself in Unison Unite, the Associated Students of the University of California, a number of other nonprofit organizations aimed towards achieving social justice. Thanks to the generosity of the Korean Resource Center, I will continue my studies of political science, sociology, and data science at UC Berkeley this fall. And in the future, I plan on going to law school and hope to provide equal and just representation to all. Thank you once again, the Korean Resource Center Scholarship Committee, for lightening our financial burdens and allowing each of us to focus on the essential part of education and leadership, learning and developing ourselves. This scholarship would not only relieve financial stress for myself, but it would also serve as an incentive to persevere and work to the best of my ability in the future. Every recipient stands with a dream for their future, and this scholarship will help turn each passion into action and purpose. Thank you.
인용하겠습니다. 민족학교 장학금위원회 위원님들, 장학생 여러분, 가족 여러분, 안녕하십니까? 제 이름은 양현지입니다. 제일 먼저 각 장학생의 비전을 경청해 주시고 높게 평가해 주시고 이를 달성할 수 있도록 금전적 지원을 해주신 민족학교 장학금위원회에 감사드립니다. 이 장학금은 여기에서 모든 수혜자의 노력을 인정해 주시는 것을 넘어 우리 사회에 긍정적인 영향을 미칠 리더도 생각해 주셔서 저희의 미래에 투자해 주시는 것이라고 생각합니다. 제 목표는 법을 공부하여 불의에 맞서 싸우고 저소득 및 이민자 커뮤니티를 위한 공공기관을 개혁하는 것입니다. 저는 자원봉사를 통해 저소득층, 유색인종, 이민자 가족 등 소외된 지역사회가 미국 사회에서 얼마나 많은 불이익을 경험하는지 직접 목격했습니다. 물론 자원봉사는 저에게 여전히 중요하지만 한계가 있습니다. 왜냐하면 제가 속한 지역 사회에서 소수의 사람들만 도울 수 있다는 것을 보았기 때문입니다. 그래서 저는 제 주변을 넘어 수백만 명의 삶을 변화시킬 수 있는 법과 정책의 힘을 깨닫게 되었습니다. 고등학교 때부터 저는 UNICEF Unite, 캘리포니아 대학교 학생회, 그리고 사회 정의 달성을 목표로 하는 여러 비영리 단체에 참여함으로써 사회적 약자들에게 권한을 부여하기 위해 지속적으로 노력해왔습니다. 민족학교의 후원 지원 덕분에 저는 올 가을 UC 버클리에서 정치학, 사회학, 데이터 과학에 대한 공부를 계속할 것입니다. 그리고 앞으로 저는 법대에 진학할 계획이고 모두에게 평등하고 정의로운 서비스를 제공하기를 희망합니다. 재정적 부담을 덜어주고 우리 각자가 교육과 리더십의 필수적인 부분인 학습과 개발에 집중할 수 있도록 해주신 민족학교 장학금위원회에 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 이 장학금은 제 자신의 경제적 스트레스를 덜어줄 뿐만이 아니라 앞으로 저에게 인내하고 최선을 다할 수 있는 동기부여가 될 것입니다. 이곳의 모든 수혜자들은 미래에 대한 꿈을 가지고 있으며 이 장학금은 각 수혜자의 열정이 행동과 목적으로 바뀌는 데 도움이 될 것입니다. 감사합니다.
Okay, and the next award is 전공 뿌리 장학금. So this is a scholarship award to remember our root 뿌리, and it goes to Joyce Lee. And Joyce joined via Google Meet earlier, and she can't make it, but she left a video statement.
Hello, my name is Joyce Lee and I will be graduating this summer from the Orange County School of the Arts. Thank you so much for choosing me as one of the scholarship winners. I'm so thankful and appreciative of the KRC committee and the scholarship they are offering. I will use the scholarship to fund my college tuition for the fall, where I will be attending UCLA. Again, I'm truly thankful for this opportunity, and the scholarship will completely go towards my college education. Thank you again for choosing me, and I'm so sorry I could not be there in person.
안녕하세요. 제 이름은 조이스 리입니다. 저는 이번 여름에 오렌지 카운티 스쿨 오브 더 아츠를 졸업할 예정입니다. 저를 장학금 수혜자 중 한 명으로 선택해 주셔서 감사합니다. 민족학교 장학금위원회와 그들이 제게 제공하는 장학금에 대해 매우 감사하게 생각하고 있습니다. 저는 이 장학금을 이번 가을 제가 다닐 UCLA 대학 등록금으로 사용할 것입니다. 다시 한번 이 기회를 통해 진심으로 감사드리며 이 장학금 전액이 저의 대학 교육에 사용될 것을 알려드립니다. 저를 선택해 주셔서 감사하고 오늘 저녁에 직접 참석하지 못해서 너무 죄송합니다.
Thank you. The next
Hello, my name is Joyce Lee and I will be graduating this summer.
And the next award is the Dure Award. Dure means Korean traditional word for supporting each other. And the Dure Award goes to Jen Park. And Jen Park is joining with Google Meet, so yeah.
Hello everyone. I would like to start off by thanking each and every member of KRC who has made it possible for me to receive this scholarship. I am determined to work hard so that I can one day be able to give back to the Korean community, because I have received so much support from them throughout my life. From my friends to community members, the Korean community around me has been a constant source of support and reassurance. Korean culture has shaped my upbringing, and I know that I would not be here today without the support of my Korean community. I truly believe in the importance of community, which is why my goal in my career as a doctor was to serve underprivileged communities and treat each patient with compassion and equality. These past several years have been eye-opening in terms of hateful propaganda and racial injustice. We all know the brutal murder of George Floyd, the attacks on Asian elderly in numerous states in America, and the people who chose to side the aggressors rather than the victims. But there were also many brave individuals who stood up for what is right and marched in Black Lives Matter protests and raised funds for the victims of Asian hate crimes. The medical field also has a long way to go in terms of racial bias and disparity. Although I am just one person, it is my goal to do everything in my personal power to reduce the appalling racism that plagues this country through my work as a doctor. Thank you once again to the KRC Foundation for this honor. I would like to thank each and every person who has made it possible for me and my fellow recipients to receive these scholarships. I feel so fortunate, and I realize how privileged I am to be here, to have a dream, and the resources to work towards achieving it. I will continue to work hard and hope to prove to each and every KRC member that I am a worthy recipient of this scholarship.
She will translate into Korean by herself.
안녕하세요. 제가 모든 KRC 멤버들에게 진심으로 감사하다는 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 제가 열심히 살아서 한국 사회를 도와주고 싶습니다. 제가 의사로서 모든 환자분들을 존중하고 배려하는 마음으로 살겠습니다. 저는 한 사람일 뿐이지만 의사로서 이 나라에 괴롭히는 인종차별주의를 줄이기 위해 최선을 다하는 것이 목표입니다. 다시 한번 감사드리고 항상 열심히 일하면서 제가 이 장학금을 받을 자격이 있다는 학생인 것을 보여드리고 싶습니다.
Thank you so much. And our next award is we have two Dure Awards. So next Dure Award goes to Nayeon Kim.
Hello, good evening everybody. My name is Nayeon Kim and I am one of the 5 recipients of Dure is a traditional collective labor operation within small farming communities in Korea where the villagers supported each other and had celebrations and fun activities together. Throughout and post my academic career, I hope to accomplish many things in ways that I can honor this belief and tradition. I am currently in school on my pathway to become a pharmacist, and I hope to work in retail pharmacy in the future with neighbor pharmacists who can be a source of abundance of information needed for your health. And as the meaning of Dure suggests, I hope that I can give back to my community by always being there for the members in need and to provide assistance to those in need of help. This scholarship will be a huge contribution that allows me to complete my education and make all this possible. I would like to thank the KRC Scholarship Committee once more, and I hope that one day I can be somebody that gives back to my community just as KRC community. Thank you.
In Korean?
안녕하세요. 저는 이번 KRC 민족학교 장학금을 받게 된 장학생 중 한 명인 김나연이라고 합니다. 우선 시작하기 앞서 이렇게 학생들을 위해 장학금을 받을 수 있는 기회를 마련해 주신 KRC 민족학교 장학위원회 분들께 감사의 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 저를 포함해서 아직도 많은 분들이 코로나로 인해 힘든 시간을 보내고 있는 지금 이 장학금은 제게 정말 큰 도움이 됩니다. 저는 이번에 Dure 장학금을 받게 되었는데 Dure는 마을의 농촌에서 모든 농민들이 자타의 구별 없이 일제히 조직적으로 서로 협력하여 공동 작업을 하는 풍습을 뜻합니다. 저는 현재 약사가 되기 위해서 대학교를 다니고 있습니다. 그리고 저는 졸업 후에 동네에 있는 약국에서 일을 하며 많은 분들의 건강을 지킬 수 있는 올바른 정보를 제공하는 약사가 되고 싶습니다. 저는 이 신분과 전통을 존중할 수 있는 방법으로 앞으로 많은 일을 해내고 싶습니다. 둘의 의미에서 알 수 있듯이 저는 도움이 필요한 사람들에게 항상 도움이 되고 저를 필요로 하는 곳에 쓰임 있는 역할을 함으로써 내가 속한 지역사회에 보답을 할 수 있는 이 장학금은 제가 학업을 무사히 마치고 이 모든 것을 가능하게 하는 큰 디딤돌이 될 것입니다. 다시 한번 KRC 민족학교 장학위원회 분들에게 감사의 말씀을 드리며 저도 언젠가는 이렇게 사회에 도움이 필요한 이들에게 힘이 되어줄 수 있는 사람이 되기를 소망합니다. 감사합니다.
And our next award is the Dream Award. And the Dream Award. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Yeah, somehow internet condition is not very good today. Can you change it to Google Meet too?
What?
Can you skip loading it?
Oh yeah, that.
Okay, yeah, sorry we don't have slides, but the next award is Dream Award, and the Dream Award goes to Hyun-Sub Kim. And hopefully we have enough internet bandwidth for Sub to give this speech.
Thank you so much for the time. My name is Hyun-Sub Kim. I'm living in Savannah, Georgia. So it's 10:42 right now. So I've been living here for 6 years. So be aware because of my future. Yeah. But I'm really grateful for her. Really thank God. He just gave me my mom in my life. I'm so grateful. As you guys see, I received the Dreamer Award, which is for young immigrant dreamers. Being an immigrant dreamer is quite harder than I thought. The reason I think this way is that when I graduated high school, I thought I was going to be like a normal high school kid. I thought I could go to college right away, or get a job, or money, or next step, but I didn't have any chance to go like anywhere. So I had to work a lot to save money for tuition. And also my mom used to work a lot for my tuition. And I remember my mom said, don't work too hard, I will work for you. I will work more in like overtime for you. And I couldn't hide my tears. And I cried a lot. And yeah, I'm so thankful that I had that kind of mom in my life. But thanks to KRC, I'm here. Now I'm going to go to college this year. I'm really grateful. And I'm ready to major on Christian ministries there, so I can speak the love of Jesus Christ to people who know about Him. And yeah, I'm ready to rock in. Thank you guys. 자, 한국말 좀 다시 했거든요. 안녕하세요. 저 김현석이라고 합니다. 저는 사바나 조지아에서 살고 있고요. 이제 미국에 온 지 6년 정도밖에 안 됐어요. 저는 먼저 하나님께 먼저 영광을 돌리고 싶고요. 하나님이 그 과정 속에서 많은 것을 도와주시고 하나님이 제게 엄마를 허락해 주신 덕분에 이러한 자리에 있어서 너무 기쁩니다. 또한 하나님이 또 이런 KRC를 저한테 소개시켜 주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 또 KRC 너무 감사합니다. 이렇게 정말 놀라운 이렇게 기회를 저한테 허락해 주셔서 제가 이렇게 대학에 들어갈 수 있게 됐는데 정말 그 도움이 얼마나 큰지 다 설명할 수 없고요. 너무 기쁘고 너무 덥습니다. 저는 보시다시피 드리머 상을 받았는데 정말 이 서울의 미부자라는 그 타이틀이 정말 힘들거든요. 고등학교 졸업하더라도 대학을 갈 수 있는 것이 이렇게 한계가 있고 일을 하는 거에 있어서 한계가 있어요. 근데 정말 그동안 모아온 돈과 또 KRC의 엄청 큰 도움 덕분에 제가 드디어 이번에 대학에 들어갈 수 있게 되는데 정말 너무 감사합니다. 정말 그것이 정말 작은 도움이 아니고 정말 엄청 큰 도움이라는 것을 제가 알려드리고 싶어요. 이제 너무 감사하고 또 정말 한국 사회, 미국에 있는 한국 커뮤니티를 위해서 발전을 위해서 노력을 힘쓰겠습니다. 너무 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. And actually, this concludes the scholarship.
Okay. Well, let's give another hand to all the scholarship awards. Really thank you to the Troy family for their donation, allowing to plant these seeds for them to an opportunity to grow their roots. And we know the money is going to go to a great cause. And I just look forward to hearing their stories later on. And so, yeah, best of luck to them all, and my prayers are with them. And so, yeah, congrats again. All right, so now our final agenda, we have, what's it? So this year marks the 30th anniversary of April 29th. The civil unrest against police brutality, racial violence, and economic injustice turned into burning, looting, vandalism of largely Korean-owned businesses. It was definitely an awakening moment for Korean Americans when we realized that the need for both political and racial empowerment was needed in our community. And so, are we still doing the translation, or?
Yeah.
Okay. 해자 선생님.
Or I can actually. Yeah, let me translate this section. 2022년 4월 29일은 4.29 30주년입니다. 저희 경찰의 잔혹성과 인종적, 경제적 차별에 대한 시민의 분노가 한국인 소유 상점을 겨냥한 방화, 약탈, 기물파산으로 바뀌었습니다. 그래서 저희 한인들에게는 정치적 힘과 타민족에 대한 이해의 필요성에 대해서 알게 되는 각성의 순간이었습니다.
So April 29th was also a turning point for the Korean Resource Center. We decided to shift our focus to community empowerment. In the 30 years that have passed, we have worked together to increase political awareness and empowerment, which in turn touched everyday lives of immigrants. We have advocated for more civic participation and rights to increase immigrant access to education, health services, and housing services. We have urged community members to send letters to our representatives, march and rally in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., biked across the state of California, and went out to register more community members to vote. The efforts paid off.
4.29는 저희 민족학교에도 전환점이 된 순간이었습니다. 4.29를 계기로 민족학교는 커뮤니티 권익 옹호에 더 많은 힘을 쏟기 시작했고, 그리고 30년이 지나는 동안 저희는 커뮤니티 학교의 정치적 역량을 늘리고 이민자들의 일상생활에 직접적인 영향을 주는 활동
poetic visual language and poignant editing style. Her directorial documentary feature film, Liquor Store Dreams, about a second-generation Korean-American children of liquor store owners in Los Angeles, will have its world premiere at the 2022 Tribeca Film Festival. So is a CAM 2021 fellow with mentorship support from acclaimed director Na-Fu Wang She is also alumnus of the Armed with a Camera Fellowship by Visual Communication, recipient of the Sundance Uprising Grant, and a Sundance Institute Documentary Film Program grantee. She is a proud member of Brown Girls, Doc Mafia, and the Asian American Documentary Network. Please welcome Soyeon, and we will watch a 5-minute trailer of her film, Liquor Dream.
엄소연 감독님이 계십니다. 엄소연 감독님은 로스앤젤레스에서 태어나서 시적인 영상언어와 날카로운 편집 스타일을 통해 힘든 삶을 살아가는 사람들의 내밀한 이야기를 하고 있습니다. 제 엄소연 감독님의 신작 다큐멘터리 리커스토어 드림은 LA에서 리커스토어를 하시는 한인분들의 자녀들의 이야기로 2020년 트라이베카 영화제에서 첫 상영을 할 예정입니다. 엄 감독님은 난프 왕 감독의 지도를 받은 CAAM 2021년도 펠로우고 Armed with a Camera Fellowship by Visual Communication 프로그램을 수료했고 Sundance Uprising 하고 Sundance Institute Documentary Film 프로그램의 지원 대상으로도 선정됐습니다. 엄 감독님은 Brown Girls Doc Mafia와 아시안 아메리칸 다큐멘터리 네트워크의 자랑스러운 회원이기도 합니다. 저희가 엄 감독님의 리커스토어 드림 5분 트레일러를 먼저 같이 한번 보시겠습니다.
나 이거 촬영한 거 어떻게 생각해?
평범하게 남자 직장 생활하고 이러면 좋은데 영화는 한국도 힘든데 여기는 미국 아니야. 더 힘들지.
이것도 힘들잖아.
어?
리커스토어 하는 거.
아니 이거 말고 힘든 걸 하니까 그게 좀 뭐랄까 마음이 아파서 그런 거지. 쉽게 해서 생각하기 힘들어. 지금 이 세대는 이거 잘 안 하잖아. 한국에서 온 사람들 와가지고 처음 영어 못하지, 뭐 기술 없이, 그러니까 다들 청소하고 깨서 옛날 80년대 일본에 사는 다 그것이 그렇게 시작해가지고 온 거 아니야. 세븐데이라는 게 아무튼 힘이 좋지. 쉬는 날도 있긴 있지만 하루 몇 년 쉬는 게 아니라 5시간, 6시간 쉬니까 쉬는 것 같지도 않고 스트레스 쌓이는 것 같아. 그게 힘든 거지 뭐 그냥.
When did your parents have this store, or when did they buy it?
Let me do some math here. 1993.
Oh wow, okay. Wow, that's a really long time.
My parents were out of work for a period of time. They were bankrupt, and an opportunity came, I guess, with this store. My dad was a very angry man. You know, I was at the receiving end of that. So we spent many, many years not talking to each other. So it was awkward.
I was very resistant, maybe because I had to work there out of obligation. Maybe into a person I really didn't want to be. I mean, there's a lot of rage.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the K rage.
The K rage.
It's the K rage.
Growing up, I asked myself, like, if I can work anywhere, where would it be? The one place I could think of was Nike. Getting a job at Nike, it was a big deal. Everybody was really proud, but after my dad passing away, it was my mom running the store by herself, knowing that that's very difficult to manage a store of this capacity. I came back here. My dad would flip over in his grave if he knew that I was doing this.
When I think about my parents, it's like, I don't want to let them down, considering all the sacrifices they made. So I always think, if I don't pursue this career, then what is it all for? I always have to think about it, if they worked this hard to come to a country where they didn't know any of the language or anybody else, and were able to make this much of themselves, I can do just the same in my own career, if not harder. And also doing something that they'll be proud of, because what is it in the end if not that?
왜냐면 어렸을 때는 군인하고 경찰이 멋있었구나. 아빠는 이게 제일 아는 게 이거 아니야 지금.
Yeah, but 진짜로 이런 일 like 아빠하고 엄마 안 보여줬으면 좋겠어요.
제일 원하는 거는 자기의 원하는. 근데 단지 후회만 하지 마.
No, never.
I don't feel in any way like coming back here and leaving my dream job. I've forfeited my time. You know, at the end of his life, we were like best friends. We were like holding each other, hugging each other, saying I love you to each other. During the time he was passing away, I was working on a book. I interviewed or asked a couple people in my life about like who they are. So I asked him, you know, like 아빠는 누구야? He said that he's just another person in America. There's many people like me. I'm just a hardworking person here, and I live my life day to day, and that's it.
피곤해도 해피.
So can we have the two, Danny and So, come up to the panel? Does the mic work?
Oh, you have to
Turn on the.
Hi everyone.
So if you can do an introduction to.
Hi everyone, my name is So-Yeon. I just go by So. In 2018, I was part of the Armed with the Camera Fellowship Program, where I was required to make a 5-minute short. I think given our limitations and budgetary restraints, I felt I needed to, or I wanted to tell a story that was close to home. And this is a story about me and my dad and children of liquor store owners. It's a story I always wanted to tell. And so I made this short. Fast forward to 4 years later, which is now. In June, and so it's been quite a long journey, and I'm thankful that Danny was here with me for this long. And it's really a snippet of what the larger film will be. I know in the short, I mostly talked about us and our parents and our cyclical dreams, whereas in Liquor Store Dreams, the feature length, I could touch on our history, tracing back to the 92 LA uprisings, to the current BLM movement, and how there is really a generational divide between us and our parents.
So we're remembrance of April 29th, very significant in our local community event, local community history. So after the April 29th, how did your parents' lives change, and how did your own life change?
한국말로 translate, summarize.
저 사회부를 통해 부모님들의 삶을 어떻게 바뀌었고, 본인들 삶은 어떻게 바뀌었어요? 본인들 어떻게 죄송합니다. 우리말 잘못해서요.
Nintendo Game Boy. That was like that time. The Game Boy, Nintendo's Game Boy was like the #1 selling video game system or whatever. So, I mean, just to give you a little bit of what was going on in my head, like school and that kind of stuff. And yeah, her friends and community. Like before, it was like all about making money, but after '92, they realized as Korean Americans how little power that they had, and realized like the importance of like an elected representative, elected official, or someone, a voice. And so, yeah, that's why she said she's thankful for Angela O. And yeah, I met Angela O like several months ago, I think. And I asked my mom if she knew this woman Angela O, and she said, 우리 같은 우리 민wan 사람들은 Angela O 모르는 사람 없어. And I was like, oh shoot, okay. And yeah, I was really that Angela helped us out, everyone, Korean Americans out. There's no one that doesn't know her. And like, man, that like, you help my mom and dad and our families, like, you're my friend too. That's kind of like, was my immediate like reaction, like, yeah, so I think that's kind of my response for that question.
Want to summarize?
데니 선생님께서 1992년도에 8살이었대요. 그래서 그때 유행했던 거, 그때 본인이 어떤 거에 관심 있는지에 대해서 좀 설명을 해줬고요. 그래서 어머니에게 여기 오기 전에 며칠 전에 여쭤봤대요. 4.19가 어떻게 분위기를 바꾸게 했는지. 그랬더니 어머니께서 하시는 말씀이 4.19 전에는 돈 버는 거에 집중을 했는데 그 후에는 우리의 정치적인 힘이 얼마나 중요한지를 깨달으셨다고. 그래서 몇 개월 전에 이제 데니 선생님이 엔젤라 오 선생님을 만날 기회가 있어서 엔젤라 오 선생님을 아냐고 여쭤봤더니 한인 커뮤니티는 엔젤라 오 선생님을 모르는 분이 없다고. 모든 분들이 그 지역 사회분들, 본인 모든 분들이 엔젤라 오 씨에게 도움을 받았다고 그런 말씀했다고 하시네요.
So, how did your parents' life change after April 29th and your own life?
During that time, we were actually living in K-Town by 3rd and Ardmore, and so I felt like I was pretty close to everything, but I was around, like 2 then, so I was not aware. Even growing up and going to American schools in LA, I don't have the best Asian American history, and so I don't think I learned about the LA Uprising till much later in in college, to be honest. And these are things I had to learn for myself. I didn't know how the uprisings affected my parents till I asked while filming the film. And my dad told me that not only our extended family, 6 or 7 stores actually burned during that time. And I'm sure their lives have changed. And I think for them, it's always, what can you do? Let's just continue going. And while interviewing Danny's mom in the film, I asked her, weren't you scared after '92 to go back into a business because of what happened? And she says, when you have nothing, you fear nothing, which was really powerful to us. And even as second gen, and even for me, because I didn't learn it, but I think once you start learning it, I've said you kind of already understand. You carry this grief within you. You don't understand where it comes from, but I think when you get the fuller context, you're like, oh, I see where our lineage, our history, and even though I was not aware of it at that time, it continues with us, and we still feel it. So I think right now, a lot of what second gen, like me and Danny, want to try to do is how do we take everything that we learned in the past, even though we didn't personally experience it, how do we carry that, move forward, and do better?
감독님은 한인타운에 살고 계셨는데 그 당시에 2살입니다. 2살. 그래서 대학교에 가서 4.29 사태가 어떤 거였는지 배우게 되고 그리고 이 영화를 위해서 데니 어머니께 그리고 본인의 경험은 그 친척들, 가족, 본인 직계 가족과 친척들 사이에서 가게를 6개, 7개 이루셨대요. 네. 그런데 아버님께서는 뭐 어떻게 하냐고, 뭐 어쩔 수 없지 않냐고 그런 반응을 보이셨고, 그리고 데니 어머니께 그때 두렵지 않았냐고 그랬더니 데니 어머니 대답이 아무것도 가진 사람은 두려울 것도 아무것도 없다, 그런 식으로 말씀하셨다고요. 그래서 그 얘기를 들었을 때 오래전부터 알았던 얘기처럼 이렇게 다가왔다고. 그래서 하고 싶은 일은 이제 이 역사를 배우고 그리고 앞으로 더 좋은 방향으로 나갈 수 있는지 그걸 이제 연구하는.
In the film, you guys mentioned the K-Rage, the Han, and I think we're talking about Saigu, I guess being the LA Han. Funny that my own name is Han. So describe that more. What is it that we could do to process this Han that our community is feeling?
영화에서 K 분노, 한에 대해서 얘기를 했는데 이 한에 대해서
Yeah, how to process it.
어떻게 그걸 소화를 시킬지에 대해서 좀 말씀해달라고.
Yeah, to process the Han. Well, yeah, I mean, like, I think something like filmmaking and the arts, creative process at like schools, like having enough resources, that all is like a part of it, you know, like the scholarships, like when you have some kind of, I mean, like facilities, recreation, parks, interests, hobbies, art, poetry, dance, stuff like that is a great way to like metabolize those emotions, and that may come out as violence and hurting people. If you have like healthy outlets, it can help to process those emotions. And so, for example, you see with like the new city budget, most of the funding goes to policing, and youth development is gets one of the least amount of funding, and so I think that's like a reflection of like all the violence you actually see out in the streets, that we don't have enough like of these resources to, like you said, process the Han. So I think that's.
한을 이렇게 프로세스를 하려면, 소화를 시키려면 자원이 필요한데 자원이 있으면 그걸 예술적으로 여러 가지 방법으로 없앨 수 있는데 그런 자원이 부족하다고요. 우리 그 도시 예산을 보면 가장 많은 돈이 지금 경찰 폴리스 디파트먼트에 가고 있고 청소년들을 위한 자원은 굉장히 적대요. 그래서 그게 문제라고 생각합니다.
I now feel like the word Han, Chong, K-Rage is a specifically a Korean American second generational term, because when I ask my Korean friends in Korea, they think it's very outdated. That it's, why are you focused on kind of the past, why are you holding on? And I think as innately as second gen, because we do feel some kind of disparity, there's like a divide, we're not American enough here, we're not Korean enough there. I think it just creates so much divide that we have. The closest word that we feel is truly Han, and I think we can really translate it to anger and holding things in. And I think the way to process is obviously like Danny said, to have healthy outlets and to really release it, because you can't, because anger festers in you and it lives on forever until you actually do something about it. And I do feel we do need therapy services for a lot of our parents to be able to have open conversations without judgment, or even just talk, to vent, and just healthier ways where it doesn't manifest, like Danny said, into violence, because I feel like that's the immediate reaction for us to start yelling, to like punch walls, things like that, because we can't fully articulate how we feel. So the best way to do it is through action, but I do feel like once we kind of implement certain routines with our parents within us, I do think we can kind of be better with that.
엄 감독님 생각에는 한정 그런 게 제2교포 2세한테 적용되는 단어라고 생각한데요. 왜냐하면 한국에 있는 한국 젊은 사람들과 얘기하면 왜 그런 거에 집중하냐고. 그래서 가끔 이제 미국 사람도 아닌 것 같고 한국 사람도 아닌 것 같고 그런 감정을 느낀다고 하네요. 그래서 그 한을 없애려면 우리가 그 데니 선생님이 말씀하신 대로 이렇게 한을 내보낼 그런 출구가 필요한데, 그리고 그 한을 내보내지 않으면 그 폭력으로 나오기 때문에 상당 뭐 그런 자원이 필요하다고 생각합니다.
So our lack of racial understanding also contributed to what happened in April 29th. So is the situation any better now? And how do you see our relationship with other neighboring communities? And what do you think we could do to further improve that?
한인 커뮤니티의 타인종과의 관계가 안 좋았던 거, 그런 게 4.29 폭동에 영향을 미쳤는데 지금은 그 관계가 어떻게 발전됐냐고 생각하냐고 지금 질문을 했습니다.
Well, okay, it's a three-part question, right?
Is the situation better now? You know, how do you see the relationship with our community, and what do you think we could do to improve it?
Is the situation any better now? I think yes and no. And examples of it?
How do you see our relationship with our communities?
Yeah.
And then what can we do to further improve it?
But you are actually still running Liquor-Store.
So the lack of racial understanding.
So yeah, I gotta say, yes and no. It's not like one answer. It's a lot of sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes and what does it look like? I guess just drawing examples from the market. Still Korean-owned market in a historically black, very disenfranchised, extremely poor neighborhood, and even just within the market space and our family and team, and you hear oh 형, 동생, Kyrie 할아버지, it's truly like family, and so it looks like that. There's fights when I think one of the things that I observe is the person who's has the least English fluency has the most there's a lot of conflicts that arise, and oftentimes it's it becomes racialized. And when I observe certain situations, it's like a truly misunderstanding or not understanding the cultural nuance. But so that's it is very real. Sorry, what was the third part of the question?
what can we do to improve it?
What can we?
That's okay, you can stop there.
I mean, she can translate while
Oh, yeah.
I think about the third one. Yeah.
타인종과의 관계가 좋은 점도 더 좋아진 면도 있지만 안 좋은 점도 많다고요. 지금 데니 선생님께서 힘이 그리고 가난한 지역에서 지금 마켓을 운영하고 계시는데 많이 싸우는 경우를 보면 그게 대부분 영어가 부족한 사람과의 싸움이고요. 그리고 그 문화 차이를 이해 못해서 그런 싸움이 벌어지는 경우가 같아요.
What can we do to improve it? I think just how do we cultivate more I want to know you better. You know, I want to learn about you. You know, that curiosity and that's kind of really cultivating that relationship and desire to. I think that's needed.
관계를 낫게 하려면 서로에 대해서 알고 싶어하는 그런 호기심 그런 걸 길러야 된다고 생각합니다.
So, any comments?
I do think it is getting better-ish. When I visit a lot of the South LA liquor stores now, they do employ a lot of black employees to actually work the cash register, but they're also second gen that have taken over the stores. I feel like when I compare my store with Danny's, my dad has a huge language barrier. He can't really speak English that well, and I think innately, Korean people have trust issues, so even hiring another Korean person is also really, sketchy or whatever. And so I think that on top of that, I don't, for sure, people like my dad, if he can't even trust Korean people, how is he going to trust somebody who he can't speak the language with? And I think that is the biggest barrier, is the language, because I do think what's nice about Danny's store is that most of his employees could speak Korean or English, that they could talk to their English-speaking customers and employees, and it creates a little bit more trust and understanding, whereas I do think a lot of our cultures are so different that it would be really hard unless you had a firm grasp of the language first. And I've been going to a lot of anniversary of the Saigu events, and I feel like the narrative is always let's start, let's love instead of hate. And for me, I don't think that's enough. I feel we do need action. It feels we're like blindly trying to turn the cheek and say, let's just move forward, let's forget about the past. And I don't think that's a good mantra at all. I do think instead of let's forget and move forward, we should actually be taking a little bit more action and trying to reach out. And I do think the media does play such a big part in creating this narrative of Korean and Black conflict, because I don't think it's that true. A lot of the anti-Asian hate that has been happening are actually from white people, but the media won't say that because a lot of white people want to remove themselves from the narrative because it's better that way, and also it's more provocative. So I always feel whatever the media is telling you is actually not accurate, but it does fuel a lot of people in creating a lot more divide. I see a lot of Asians now who are like, oh, Black people, and then a lot of Black people are like, oh, Asians. And I think it's like very small margins of understanding, and they take one large example and just go with that forever. And I don't think obviously that's healthy. And if
운영을 하고 그리고 흑인 직원들을 고용하고 있고 그리고 지금 매스컴에서는 이게 한국 사람하고 흑인과의 갈등으로 지금 그걸 표현을 하고 있는데 그게 사실이 아니고요. 그리고 엄남동님 생각으로는 그냥 잊어버리고 그냥 앞으로 나가자, 서로 용서하고 사랑하고 앞으로 나가자. 그런데 경동님 생각에는 그걸 행동을 취해야 된다고 생각하세요.
Do you think there could be a repeat of April 29th here in LA?
4.19가 반복될 수 있을 거라고 생각하세요?
So my dad said this while I was interviewing him. He says, I don't know why, but I heard this rumor that every 30 years an uprising happens. Which I was like, you're right on time. Because, it was a 65 watts rebellion, then it was the LA uprising, then it was 2020. And I do feel as a society, like we want to do better, but we also like are not. So I do feel, and I think the police is actually so powerful, more than I would like to admit, considering their budget and just the amount of, just the power that they do have institutionally, that if everything always stems back to police brutality, what makes us think that it's not gonna happen again? It's not that it's not happening, because it happens every day. It's just that it'll take 30 years to finally for us to, you know, be sick of it again. And so I do see it happening, but I do feel like there's ways to implement it the way that 92 happened and the way that 2020 happened, especially when it comes to the protests or people looting or whatever. It was vastly different. Back then it was people just want to survive and they just went to their, you know, grocery stores, took stuff. Now it was like kids going to Beverly Hills and taking stuff, and that was like their way of acting out. And so I do feel like we've learned a lot, but then I think we can be a little bit smarter in the protesting. 2 cents.
정감독님 아버님께서 30년 만에 폭동이 일어난다고 1965년, 1992년, 2020년 일어나지 않냐고. 그리고 정감독님 생각에는 경찰이 항상 잔인하게 행동을 하고 있고, 그리고 경찰의 힘이 너무 많고 재정도 많고 그래서 일어날 수 있다고 생각하시고요. 그냥 police brutality, 잔인한 행동은 매일 일어나고 있는데 이제 30년 동안 쌓여서 이제 폭발하는 거, 그런 거라고 생각하시는 것 같아요. 그런데 이제 1992년도에는 이제 사람들이 생존하기 위해서 슈퍼마켓 같은 데 가서 집단을 했는데 2020년도에는 고급 백화점에 가서 물건을 훔치고 그런 행동을 했기 때문에 조금 더 이렇게 똑똑하게 시위를 해야 된다고 그렇게 말씀하셨습니다.
Yeah, well, my answer is yes. So, that's
Okay.
4.19 같은 폭동이 또 일어날 수 있다고 생각하십니다.
So what was the most surprising part in making this documentary? What surprised you the most in the process of making it?
I'm going to talk in relation to the short. It was probably the first time I actually asked my dad questions and found out more about who he was outside of me as his daughter. And so it was kind of scary because I normally don't ask my dad about personal questions about his history, his life before me, and things like that. And so I like to think that the camera served as a mediator. I could only ask these questions because the camera was there to be between us so we could have this conversation. And I think it made me realize how much of a natural performer my dad is. My dad's very like goofy and plays it up for the camera too. So I think in filming not only this short but the feature length, I do feel it really expanded our relationship in a lot of ways. And you'll see in the feature version that comes out this year that we just got into a lot of fights. A lot, and I don't sugarcoat anything, and so I do feel like a lot of Korean people who from every generation will be able to understand both sides, because I do feel because he lived through that era, he obviously thinks very differently from me.
엄 감독님 아버님을 본인의 아버님이 아닌 다른 사람으로 처음 보게 된 거, 그리고 그분에게 이제 아버님께 질문해서 그분이 어떻게 사셨고 자기가 태어나기 전에 사셨던 삶 그런 거에 대해서도 배우고 근데 그게 가능했던 게 감독님하고 아버님 사이에 카메라가 있었기 때문에 그게 가능했다고 생각하시고요. 그리고 이 영화를 만들면서 아버님이 공연자라는 거 굉장히 재밌으시고 그런 면을 보게 됐다고요.
Yeah, I'm just thank you for like having the like making that film, foresight and just the vision to. It's like, damn, like it's like because it's like normal to us. Because you don't like know what's special until like someone tells you, you see like that you're not like that you're not worthy, and then so you kind of have to fight to represent and like fight for your voice. It's like it's not that we don't inherently have it, but we're told that we're less than, and so. It's surprising just to see this film in development, because I remember when So was started. So's real blogspot business card with you and the camera on your head, and that's like you just continue to manifest your dreams and passion for film. I don't know how many years it's been now, and it's like just amazing to see that in fruition. And so like in the film, like how your father said, like as long as you're happy, like it's really touching, and like I saw this quote by Polly Murray this week. She's a civil rights activist and pioneer in gender equality. So when my brother tries to draw a circle to exclude me, I shall draw a larger circle to include them. And like there's like so in documenting this, there's so much, and in real life, there's so much like conflict with our parents in trying to see one another, like you said, the generational divide, but like how you uplift your parents and your father in the process, is like, and everyone in the process is like really just amazing.
Can I just say one thing? It's amazing that I'm here too. I know this is a scholarship thing, but I have to always say, like I went to community college, I went to Cal State Long Beach, I like came up with almost nothing, and then to really make a short film and then crowdfund and then get as far as Sundance supporting us and then getting it to Tribeca Film Festival, it honestly felt like a miracle. You can't really, I can understand people like to say, oh, you can succeed if you work hard. I don't think hard work is enough. I think you need a lot more help, a lot more community, and I honestly think it was the amount of people.
운동가 하신 말씀을 해주셨는데 누가 당신을 못 들어오게 원형을 그리면 그 사람을 포함하게 더 큰 서클을 그리라고 그런 말씀을 해주셨고요. 그리고 감독님은 이제 오늘 장학금 수여하는 날이잖아요. 그래서 이 학생들에게 해드리고 싶은 말씀은 이제 본인이 커뮤니티 college 우선 다니고 그리고 이제 캘스테이트 나오셔서 이 영화도 그 5분짜리 맨 처음에 만드셨는데 그때 크라우드펀딩 아주 여러 사람들이 돈을 투자를 해줘가지고 만드셨대요. 그래서 그 영화가 다른 내용도 있고 그렇지만 아무튼 여러분들이 서포트를 해주시고 그래서 그 선댄스에서 지원을 해주시고 지금 트라이베카라는 굉장히 유명한 영화제에서 이제 개봉을 할 거예요. 그 모든 과정이 기적이라고 그러시면서 자신을 믿으라고 그런 자신의 꿈을 이룰 수 있다 그렇게 말씀해 주시네요.
혼자서만 할 수 있냐?
네, 혼자서는 네, 감사합니다. 네.
주변에 많은 도움이
네,
있어야지만
네.
할 수 있다.
So So now we're going to open up any questions to the floor, and if you're online, please type in your question in the chat. And 혹시 질문 있으면 지금 직접 물어보시고요. Otherwise, I'm going to ask more
Oh
questions.
yes, it's less of a question. It just was really beautiful to see your film. I think a friend of mine circulated it, and I just remember watching whatever it was when you were trying to do crowdfunding. And I think what really struck me was just, you know, just how beautiful it is to see your dad and hear his voice, and just the images. I think for a lot of the people supporting this, it's just wonderful to see this story shown very beautifully on film. It's a treasure.
I can't wait for you to watch the longer version because it's like 10 times better. Like this is pretty good, but we really made something that I do feel will be part of Korean American history, and that's the reason why I made it, because I never saw anything like it, and I didn't want to repeat anything that was created before. And I hope that in 30 years my child could also make their version, just because I do feel this is a problem that will continue. And I do hope all we can do is how do we get better, even if society can't.
질문보다는 커멘트인데 그 지금 5분짜리 공개 너무 좋았다고 커멘트 하시니까 감독님께서 그 영화는 10배 더 좋다고 하시네요. 그리고
I forgot to. Is this the short film you just gave us? It's a part of your longer version of the documentary, or is it totally different?
Yeah, I touch on some of the similar themes. I include Danny's father, kind of my struggles, but in order to make, this is only 5 minutes, the feature length is 81 minutes, 85 minutes. And so I wanted to add in the history, larger story. I do feel in finding out, you know, in the 80s, 75% of South LA was all owned by Korean people. I mean, all the stores in South LA in the 80s were owned by Korean people. Sorry, I'm like mixing things up. But I think because there were so many of us that I felt like I needed to touch on that, as well as tell our side, the new generation as well as the older generation side, just because I think in the recent years of George Floyd's death and police brutality and all this, there's so many issues that did come up again. And so the question of have we progressed, have we changed, always is something that we always think about.
So 아까 so 80년도에 75%에 있는 그 사우스 센트럴 LA에 있는 비즈니스들이 가게들이 한국 분들이 운영을 하셨던 것 같아요.
피곤해요.
Yeah, I know. I have a hard time
그래서
remembering.
그 80몇 분짜리인데.
네네. 5분짜리 오늘 보시면 5분짜리고요. 이제 영화제에서 개봉할 거는 80몇 분짜리인데 우리가 이제 우리 관계가 나아졌나 그거에 대해서 이제 이야기할 거예요.
I just want to make a really quick comment on the issue of I was so touched at my work, where I work, when there was a really tragic shooting of the women in Atlanta at the spa. And the first people to come out and want to make a public statement about it were my Black colleagues. And they actually put out a whole statement about their grieving and their sadness and the solidarity. And I was just so touched by that. Just the generosity.
아틀란타 슈링 있었을 때 제일 먼저 이렇게 발언을 해준 사람들이 정말 크게 눈물을 하고 그래서 우리가 같이 있습니다. 위로의 말도 해주고 그랬다고요. 그래서 굉장히 감동을 받았다는 뜻이네요.
community college, Cal State Long Beach, your path. But you're going to Tribeca, that's remarkable. And I think when you said like you were interested, but it seems to me you have to have an enormous amount of talent, drive, and luck. Because you really got lightning in a bottle there. You were able. I mean, the downside is there was, uprising and horrible, property damage and some death. But you were at the right place and time in history to have, such an amazing story to tell. So I don't know exactly what my question is, but I feel like those that are extraordinary results is when, you're in that moment at the very right place at the very right time, and then you're able to tell that story. So, but if you didn't have the determination and the talent, so what?
Yeah, I don't contribute everything to talent because I was really bad at school. Like I never got good grades, so my parents worried a lot about even me going to college, and like the only thing I like to do, because I was not good at math, I wasn't good at English, I failed all the hub ones. I went to hub one all the time. It just did not work. And I just know that me and my family are we're like workers. We like to work, and so for me, I always know that you have to work with your strengths. Whatever you're really good at, you have to go 100,000% on it. And I don't necessarily believe in luck because I do feel it is you're working for it. So I don't ever feel like people are lucky, because that just feels kind of wishy-washy. Oh, I was just lucky. I don't think people are lucky. And I know that for the film, I actually wanted it to come out during the 30th anniversary, so I was kind of aiming for that too. It's just with documentary, and I think Danny being part of it, the most miraculous thing was how much it evolved and how much it changed and how much we were able to adapt with the story, just because life is happening so fast. How can you capture everything? And I think what was nice is that what the story we were planning on telling, it just got that much deeper, just because we wanted to, I think we had to really dig in ourselves. What is the true story that we dug? We actually found some really honest moments that made the film really incredible. And yeah.
감독님은 운이 중요하다고 생각하지 않고요. 본인이 가진 장점이 있으면 그걸 가지고 천배만배 노력을 해야 된다고 생각하세요. 그래서 이 영화 만들 때 4.29 30주년 그걸 맞춰서 하려고 했지만 그 영화를 만드는 기간 동안 자신들 대현 씨랑 같이 하면서 자신들을 들여다보면서 그 과정에서 또 영화가 많이 바뀌었나 봐요, 그 내용이. 그래서
So thank you again. Let's give a hand to thank you to everyone that joined online and also that are here today. 저 통역하는데.
대현 씨 감사합니다. 그리고 여기 와주신 분들 또 온라인으로 같이 함께해 주신 분들 모두 감사드립니다.
So this will conclude our event today. We just want to wrap up by, is there a LA date prepared or?
Not yet. If you're in New York, get your Tribeca ticket. Hopefully we will come to LA very soon, sometime this year.
Okay, great.
LA 개봉 날짜는 아직 없고요. 올해 한 12월?
In June.
June. No, Tribeca is June. But when's LA opening, you think?
Just later on this year.
No. 네, Tribeca 뉴욕에서 6월달 개봉하고요. LA 개봉은 올해 이제 언제쯤 하게 될 거예요.
And then look forward to our KRC will be hosting a fundraising / jam session with Black drummers and Korean drummers. So that'll be June 9th. in downtown LA. So look forward to that collaborative. It's really exciting. And yeah, please visit the KRC website and donate. We really could use the funds to help with the infrastructure and supporting the communities. And we really want to do more events like this as well too. So thank you again to everyone and for your support. 진실로 감사드립니다.
민족학교가 6월 9일날 이제 흑인 드러머들하고 한국 드러머들하고 같이 공연을 하는 행사가 있어요. 다운타운에 있을 건데 거기 많이 참여해 주시고요. 그리고 민족학교 웹사이트에 가셔서 방문해 주시면 정말 감사하겠습니다.
Thank you everyone.